Stop acting like it's your place, my brother laughed, leaning against my doorway like he owned the frame. Family doesn't knock. The sound of his kids running through my hallway followed. Shoes on my clean floors, sticky fingers on my walls, laughter too loud, too careless. I stood there holding my grocery bags, feeling something inside me shrink again. Some betrayals don't explode. They drip. Slowly. Daily. Until you're soaked in them. Hi everyone. My name is Elena Brooks. And before anyone asks, no, I wasn't rich. I wasn't powerful. I was just a woman who worked hard to afford one quiet place in a city that never stopped taking. This apartment was the first thing that was mine. Every bill paid on time. Every corner earned. And my brother knew that. He also knew I lived alone. It started small. A spare key he borrowed. A visit that turned into an afternoon. An afternoon that turned into entire weekends where I came home to chaos. Food missing, lights left on, my bed rumpled like strangers had rested where I cried myself to sleep. Relax, he'd say. The kids need space. You're lucky to have this place. Lucky. The word tasted bitter when I found fingerprints on my bedroom mirror. When I opened my fridge and saw empty shelves. When my neighbors started looking at me like I was the problem. I tried asking nicely. Then firmly. Then I stopped asking at all. The day I found my apartment door unlocked. Wide open in the middle of a workday, something snapped. Not loudly. Quietly. The kind of snap that doesn't heal. I watched security footage that night. My brother. His 4 children. In and out like it was a playground. Like I didn't exist. So I did the unthinkable. I called building management. I changed the locks. I filed paperwork I never thought I'd file against my own blood. When the ban notice went up, my phone exploded. You ruined us, he texted. You chose walls over family. I didn't reply. That night, as I sat alone in the dark, listening to the unfamiliar peace of silence, someone knocked on my door. Hard. Authoritative. When I opened it, 2 police officers stood there. And the first words out of one of their mouths made my blood run cold. We need to ask you a few questions, ma'am, the officer said, his tone careful. Too careful. My hallway light flickered above us. I noticed stupid details. His badge number, the way the younger officer avoided my eyes, how my heart started beating in my ears like a warning siren. Is something wrong? I asked, already knowing the answer. The older officer cleared his throat. Your brother reported an incident. Of course he did. He claims you threatened his children, the younger one added. Says you've been harassing them, that you made them feel unsafe. I laughed. It slipped out before I could stop it. Broken. They broke into my home, I said. Repeatedly. I have footage. They exchanged a glance. We're aware, the older officer said. But he also claims you snapped when management banned them. Says you told him you'd make sure they never stepped foot in this building again. I swallowed. I had said that. Calmly. Wiggly. With paperwork. I filed a restraining order, I said. That's not a threat. That's protection. The younger officer finally met my eyes. He's pushing for charges. The word hit harder than I expected. Charges. For months I'd been the one locking doors. Whispering apologies to neighbors. Cleaning messes that weren't mine. Now somehow I was the villain in his story. May we come in? The older officer asked. As they stepped inside, my gaze drifted to the living room. Clean, quiet, untouched. No toys. No noise. No chaos. This is what peace looks like, I thought. And it terrifies people who thrive on taking. I handed over my phone. The footage. The timestamps. The messages where he laughed about free access. About how family rules don't apply. The room filled with silence as they watched. Finally, the older officer spoke again. Slower this time. Miss Brooks, there's something else. My stomach tightened. Your brother didn't just file a complaint, he said. He filed one before you did. And he claims you're hiding something in this apartment. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. What? I whispered. Does he think I'm hiding? The officer didn't answer right away. He looked past me at my walls, my shelves, the locked door to my bedroom, as if my brother's lie had already planted something poisonous in the room. He claims you're concealing financial assets, the officer finally said. Large sums. Unreported income. Possibly obtained through coercion. I stared at him, stunned. Then I understood. This wasn't about the kids. This wasn't about access. This was punishment. He thinks I'm hiding money? I asked softly. He says you've been secretive lately, the younger officer added. That you cut him off suddenly. Changed locks. Filed legal paperwork. In his words, people don't act like that unless they have something to hide. I almost laughed again. Almost. What I actually felt was colder. You can search, I said. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. I have nothing illegal. Nothing hidden. They nodded. Professional. Methodical. I stepped aside as they walked through my home, opening cabinets, glancing into closets, scanning the space where my life lived quietly. While they searched, my mind replayed memories I'd buried. My brother asking about my job. Casual questions about my savings. Jokes about how I must be doing better than I let on. I'd brushed them off. I always did. The older officer returned from my bedroom holding a small fireproof box. What's this? My documents, I said. Bank records. Legal files. He opened it, paused, then looked up at me again, different now. Miss Brooks, he said slowly, your brother claimed you were hiding money from him. I tilted my head. From him? Yes, he replied. He said you'd promised to support his children financially. That you backed out. That the restraining order was retaliation. The lie was almost impressive. I never promised him anything, I said. He took. Without asking. The younger officer cleared his throat. There's more. He also claimed the apartment was partially his. That he helped you get it. That one hurt. Not because it was true, but because it was cruel. I bought this place alone. After years of saving. After surviving a divorce that emptied me out emotionally and financially. After choosing peace over comfort. He's lying, I said simply. The older officer closed the box. We can see that. Relief rushed in, brief, fragile. Then he added, but lies don't need to be true to cause damage. And your brother isn't done. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from him. You think this is over? You don't know who you're dealing with. I looked up at the officers. What happens, I asked quietly, when someone decides ruining you is easier than respecting you? And for the first time that night, neither of them had an answer. After the officers left, the apartment felt smaller. Not physically, emotionally. Like the walls had leaned in to listen to every thought I didn't say out loud. I locked the door. Then I locked it again. My phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls. Voicemails I didn't open. Messages from numbers I recognized and some I didn't. My brother had always been good at recruiting an audience. Cousins. Old family friends. People who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly had opinions about my character. How could you do this to him? They're just kids. Blood is blood. None of them asked what it felt like to come home and not feel safe in your own space. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, knees pulled to my chest, watching the security app like it was a heartbeat monitor. Every flicker of movement outside made my stomach clench. At 3:14 a.m. the camera pinged. I watched my brother step into frame. No kids this time. He stood in front of the building entrance, phone pressed to his ear, pacing like a man rehearsing a performance. I couldn't hear him, but I knew the rhythm of his anger. The exaggerated gestures. The way he pointed toward my window like I was a problem to be solved. Then he did something that made my breath catch. He looked directly at the camera. And smiled. The next morning, building management called me in. Their tone was different now. Pause. People. Your brother contacted us, the manager said, folding her hands on the desk. He claims you manipulated the footage. That you provoked him. That you're using the restraining order to intimidate. Intimidate. I slid a folder across the desk. Printed screenshots. Time-stamped videos. Copies of police reports. The restraining order paperwork. My hands were steady. She opened it. Page by page. This is thorough, she admitted. I had to be, I said. No one believes you until you prove you're bleeding. She looked up. He's demanding mediation. The word felt like a trap. I decline, I said. Her lips pressed together. Then I need to warn you, he's threatening a civil suit. Claims emotional distress. Loss of access. Financial harm. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead I asked, Did he mention the spare key? She frowned. What spare key? I stood. He'll deny it. But I didn't imagine the unlocked door. And I didn't imagine the way he moved through my home like it was his. That afternoon I went to the locksmith, then the bank, then my lawyer. Because something inside me finally clicked into place. My brother wasn't angry because I banned him. He was angry because he'd lost control. And people like him don't stop when they lose control. They escalate. That night as I pulled into my parking spot, my phone rang. Unknown number. When I answered, a calm male voice said, "Miss Brooks, this is Child Protective Services. We need to talk about a report filed under your name." I gripped the steering wheel as the world tilted again. "I didn't file any report," I said, the words coming out slower than my pulse. There was a pause on the line. Paper shuffling. A breath that told me the man on the other end already knew this call wasn't going to be simple. "According to our records," he said carefully, "a report was submitted alleging emotional neglect and unstable behavior in a household connected to you." My stomach dropped. "I don't have children," I replied. "I live alone." Another pause, longer this time. "Yes," he said. "That's why this report stood out. It claims the concern isn't about your children, but about your influence on others." I leaned my head back against the car seat, the ceiling lights of the parking garage blurring above me. "Influence how?" The answer came quietly, almost gently. "Your brother alleges you've been emotionally abusive toward his children. That you created a hostile environment, caused fear and threatened their sense of safety by involving law enforcement." Of course he did. I felt something inside me harden, not into anger but clarity. "He broke into my home," I said. "Repeatedly. I protected myself." "I understand," the caseworker said. "But I need you to understand something too. Even false reports create files. And files create investigations." I closed my eyes. "Will this affect me legally?" I asked. "It could," he said honestly. "Especially given the restraining order. Retaliation claims can get complicated." When the call ended, I didn't move. Cars came and went. Doors slammed. Life continued like nothing had shifted. But everything had. Because now I saw it clearly. My brother wasn't trying to get back into my apartment. He was trying to build a version of me on paper. One where I was dangerous, unstable, unfit. And if he succeeded, I wouldn't just lose peace. I'd lose my credibility. My phone lit up again. A message from him. "You should have let us stay. Now people are asking questions about you." I stared at the screen, realizing something terrifying. This wasn't a tantrum. This was a strategy. And I was already standing inside it. I didn't reply to his message. Silence, I'd learned, was the one thing that made him nervous. Instead, I called my lawyer from the car. She listened without interrupting, letting the story spill out. The police, the CPS call, the lies stacking neatly on top of each other like paperwork designed to bury me. "This is harassment," she said when I finished. "And it's escalating." "But he's doing it legally," I replied. "Or at least, close enough." "That's the danger," she said. "People like your brother don't swing wildly. They weaponize systems." The next 48 hours blurred into a checklist of survival. I submitted a formal complaint about the false CPS report. I emailed building management again, this time copying my attorney. I backed up every video, every message, every voicemail, labeling them with dates and times like evidence in a case I never asked to be part of. Then came the knock. Not loud. Not aggressive. Polite. I opened the door to find a woman in a navy blazer, a badge clipped neatly at her waist. Calm eyes. Neutral smile. "Miss Brooks," she said. "I'm with Child Protective Services. I just need to ask a few questions." I stepped aside and let her in. She sat on the edge of my couch, clipboard balanced on her knee, and asked me about my relationship with my brother. About the children. About boundaries. About why I'd involved law enforcement instead of resolving things privately. Each question was reasonable. Together they formed a quiet accusation. "I didn't involve the police," I said evenly. "I involved the law." She wrote something down. "And do you believe," she asked, "that banning access to your home could have emotionally harmed the children?" I met her gaze. "Do you believe forcing entry into someone's home teaches children respect?" She paused. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't going the way my brother expected. As she stood to leave, she said, "One more thing. Your brother was very insistent that I speak with you in person." After the door closed, my phone buzzed again. Another message from him. "They're finally seeing who you really are." I smiled for the first time in days. Because now so was I. 2 days later, my lawyer called me before I could even sit down at my desk. "CPS closed the inquiry," she said. "Unfounded. Not even a warning." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My hands were shaking, not from fear this time but from the aftershock of surviving something meant to break me. "But," she continued, "that's not the end of it." Of course it wasn't. "He overplayed his hand," she said. "And now we can prove a pattern." She explained it slowly, calmly, like this was chess, not my life. The false police report. The fabricated CPS complaint. The messages. The timing. The footage of him smiling at the camera after being banned. "It's retaliation," she said. "And judges don't like retaliation." That afternoon I was served papers. Not from him. From the court. A hearing date. His name listed as the respondent. Mine as the petitioner. My lawyer had filed for an expanded restraining order. One that included digital harassment, third-party interference, and false reporting. I hadn't asked her to move that fast. "I did," she said simply. "Because today he contacted your employer." My chest tightened. And told them you were under investigation for abuse," she said. "They called me before they called you." I closed my eyes. "They didn't believe him," she added. "Because we sent them the closure notice this morning." Silence filled the line. Then she said, "There's more. During discovery he submitted documents." "What kind of documents?" I asked. Her voice dropped. "Bank statements. Claims you were financially supporting his household and cutting him off maliciously." I felt a slow, cold smile form. "He forged them," I said. "Yes," she replied. "And he used his real name to do it." The hearing was in 3 days. And for the first time my brother wasn't writing the story anymore. He'd handed it to a judge. And judges read everything. The courtroom was quiet in the way only serious places are. No drama. No raised voices. Just facts laid bare like exposed wires. My brother sat across from me, arms crossed, jaw tight. He wouldn't look at me. Not once. The judge did. She read slowly. Carefully. The police report timelines. The CPS closure notice. The building ban. The security footage. The messages where my brother bragged about knowing people and making things difficult. Then she paused at the bank statements. "These documents," she said, tapping the page, "were submitted as evidence of financial dependency." My brother nodded too quickly. "They've been verified," my lawyer said calmly. "And they're fabricated." The judge looked up. "Mr. Brooks, did you submit these personally?" "Yes," he said. "They're real." She slid another paper forward. "These," she said, "are the originals from the bank. Different account numbers. Different balances. Different signatures." Silence fell like a held breath. Forgery carries a specific weight when spoken out loud. So does abuse of process. So does false reporting. The restraining order was granted. Expanded. Permanent. No contact. No third parties. No digital reach. No exceptions. The judge didn't raise her voice when she said it, but her words landed like a door slamming shut. "Family does not grant permission to harass," she said. "And access is not ownership." Outside the courthouse, my brother finally looked at me. "You didn't have to destroy me," he muttered. I met his eyes, steady and calm. "I didn't," I said. "I stopped letting you live in my life without consent." That night I returned to my apartment, locked the door once, and for the first time in months, slept without listening for footsteps that didn't belong to me.